Hey guys, it's Faye from Solar Flow and I am back with a new video. Today's topic is Ask Me Anything. So these are your guys' questions and my channeled answers. And I know that you guys thoroughly enjoy these videos, which is why I am making it a monthly topic. And if you want to get in on next month's, then always check out the community tab because that's where I open up the forum for questions. That's not to say you can't request anything in my videos because, as you know, I will always take the time to respond to you guys there, and any questions that are asked there do make it into my notebook. So I'm always keeping a list of the topics that you want me to look into. It's just to say that if you haven't checked out the community tab, then please do because there's a lot going on over there as well. Now, because I did channel so much information, I am going to be referencing the notes in my notebook, especially because some of these topics didn't make it into last month's AMA. So the information actually is, the first notes that I have here are starting back in January. So let's dive in. Now, first and foremost, just in case you've asked a question, and you're wondering why I haven't actually answered it here. So that is because what will happen is anytime a question is asked, as I said, I always put it into my notebook, but sometimes when I allow my mind to relax and to go into information or go into a requested topic, it doesn't feel right, or the information doesn't want to come through. So I don't push it in times like that, especially when I know I have so much other information that's been requested. So if you have asked a question and it is not answered herein, it doesn't mean that I'm never going to answer it. It just means that at that time when I had looked into it, for whatever reason, either I wasn't excited about it and therefore I wasn't able to connect to it, or the information just didn't want to come in. There's a very good chance I'm going to answer your question in a future video because I have some questions here from last month's AMA that I didn't get to that I'm answering now. So does it mean that I'm never going to answer it? No, absolutely not. It just means that for whatever reason, when I looked into it at that time, the information didn't come in. I am going to put timestamps down below, so if you want to hop around, you're more than welcome to. I'll also say that I think everything that I channeled herein is super interesting, so if you can, watch it through all the way. And with that, let's get in. So this fellow is the probably second most requested topic that you guys have been asking for. And this is a young man by the name of Twitch. And he was the DJ on the Ellen DeGeneres show. And he had committed suicide, or we've been told that he committed suicide in a hotel room. And for a lot of people, they just thought that the whole situation and the whole explanation was very, very suspicious and had asked me to look into it. So I'm going to definitely be referring to my notes here because I actually had a full-on conversation with Twitch, and it's in quotation marks, and I want to make sure that I actually am portraying the information correctly as it came into me. So this is what happened when I connected to Twitch's energy. I asked him straight off the bat if he had killed himself, and he told me no. I asked then why he had been taken out, and he said because, quote, he knew too much. So I asked if that was specifically about Ellen, and he said, quote, not only her. I asked why he was taken out now, and he said because, quote, she is going to trial, end quote. I asked why he went to the hotel, and he said, quote, to lead them away from my family, end quote. I asked how he knew things, and he said, quote, being in the industry, being on set, and people, as in the guests that Ellen would have, the celebrity guests, were always saying things to Ellen. They had no filter and they showed her their true selves, and also to me, end quote. I asked if there was anything else he wanted to say, and he said, a lot of people are gone. Most are gone. They're over here with me. They're walking around and they're stunned. They don't understand how it all came down so fast, end quote. So that is what happened with Twitch. He knew too much, not just about Ellen, but about all of the guests that she had on her show, because they were all in a similar kind of situation, in a similar club, and they were always just confiding in one another, talking about things. And as a result of him being on set and being exposed to it, he was always hearing the conversations. He was always seeing these people's true selves. And because Ellen is apparently actually on trial now, or she's going to trial, he needed to be taken out because he knew too much. And why did he go to the hotel? It was not to commit suicide. It was to take the people that meant to hurt him away from his family, so that he would be the only one that went down and not his family. Okay, so I hope that that answers any questions that you guys have had about Twitch. The next person that I channeled was Lisa Marie Presley. And this was interesting, actually. She was very interesting. She had very interesting energy. And at first, she was very, very open to sharing all of her energy, all of her thoughts, all of her experiences with me, until she wasn't. So this is what happened when I connected to Lisa Marie Presley's energy. So it was shown to me that she was actually a high-functioning drug addict. And she struggled with her self-esteem, and she hated being Elvis's daughter. And she always felt like a show pony. Her mother told her growing up that she was destined for great things because of the virtue of the fact that she was Elvis's daughter. So there was not a lot of emphasis placed on her uniqueness, her gifts, her abilities, her innate talent. It was always, you're just going to be great because of the fact that you're Elvis's daughter. And she longed to be normal and ordinary. Now, she was also always self-conscious of being looked at, and she always just wanted to be left alone. And she was always looked at because she was Elvis's daughter. Again, she felt like a show pony on display for the world. It was also shown to me that when she was younger, she had an eating disorder, and she would binge and then she would throw up. So she would first eat her feelings away because she was not necessarily raised in an environment where there was a lot of emphasis placed on emotional health. And also an environment where she felt very much like she was not being seen and recognized for who she herself was. So she was eating her feelings away, and then she would feel so gross and upset within herself that she would just end up throwing all of that food back up because she felt ashamed. And then she would end up feeling worse. So this became a toxic cycle for her. She would eat her feelings away, feel gross, throw up, then feel ashamed, and then that would bring up new fresh rounds of emotions of how she felt, in which she felt not safe to share them. It was not an environment where there was a lot of like emotional health. And then she would just repeat the cycle all over again. She never really felt like that she fit in, and she struggled with an imposter syndrome her entire life. It's at this point where energetically she started to cry. And she was telling me that she just wanted to be left alone, and there was always older men around her. And they loved to touch her. And they would always touch her hair and her cheeks and her shoulders. And even though she was young, she could tell that they wanted her. And because this was happening at an age where she was too young to understand it, it left a very uncomfortable, indelible impression on her. And it always made her wonder if this was the destined to greatness part that her mother had been referring to. Is this what it means to be destined to greatness? That older men will touch you and want you? And she felt like she was traded and like she was a commodity. And she was always tired and never alone. Because again, she always felt like the world was looking at her. She was raised with this understanding that she was Elvis's daughter and she was special just because of that alone. She was taken out, she was paraded around for all the world to see. She was taken out and paraded around for all of these older men to touch her and to put their lascivious, unhealthy sexual appetites upon her when she was too young to understand it. But even being too young to understand it, very much understood what they wanted from her. And she wondered why no one ever left her alone. She was Elvis's daughter, that's why. And her mind was always buzzing and it was never at peace. And she told me that even now on the other side, she feels so anxious, like she's wondering when is she going to meet God and will he like her? So her self-worth issues have actually compounded through the entirety of her lifetime and carried through into the afterlife for her. She says that her issues are crippling and she actually has no interest in seeing Elvis as she spent her entire life trying to run away from the fact that she was his daughter. She also told me that she's not sad that she's dead, only a little sad for her kids, but mostly happy that she is gone. She says even on the other side, and there is no peace because there's always so many guides and guardian angels that are always around her. And she just wants to be left alone. Then energetically, she turned on me once she was recounting how even on the other side, she's not left alone because there's always guardian angels and guides and always these angelic beings that are around her. And I think that was very triggering for her. And she turned on me and she actually told me to leave her alone. And why was I bothering her about her passing? So I had actually, per the request that had come in, had connected to her because I wanted to get a greater understanding of what led to her passing. And she just ended up, sharing with me her entire life story up until the point that she realized, hey, I want to be left alone. Why are you bugging me? Just get the fuck out of here. So I left her alone. But basically, her energy came in very, very anxious and like it was one long run-on sentence that was a stream of consciousness. Now, what for me is the most interesting about Lisa Marie Presley is the fact that even on the other side, her soul expression carries through. And she still has these self-worth issues, and they are crippling for her even on the other side, to the point where she is wondering if God is even going to like her. So this is actually a really, really good example for attachment and how attachment can energetically carry through from lifetime to lifetime. Where if an issue is so deeply embedded into a person, it may not completely be eradicated in their passing. And that will carry over into the next lifetime as well. So she, in her next lifetime, may come in her incarnation and have self-worth issues, albeit it will be to a lesser extent because she will be healed by God's essence and God's life source energy. But attachments like this can carry through. So for anybody that wants to, if they can, eradicate and as many of these personality attachments as they can prior to passing, that would definitely facilitate in the lack of these attachments carrying through from lifetime to lifetime. So if you got issues in this lifetime, try to work them out as best you can so that way they don't follow you into the next one. Okay, now the next one also came by request, and this is for Jennifer Lopez, J-Lo. And I thought this was actually wild. So what happened when I connected to J-Lo's energy, she was rolling her eyes at Ben Affleck. And for anyone who had seen, even if you didn't watch the Grammys themselves, but if you watched, the memes that came out thereafter, the body language that Ben Affleck had towards her, priceless. It's just priceless. So she energetically is in a constant state of actually rolling her eyes at Ben Affleck. Now, why this is because she told me she never completely got over him breaking up with her. I think they were together well over 15 years ago. She never got over that. So girlfriend's a little bit of a petty character. She never got over that, and she told me that she is highly, highly competitive, and because of the fact that she never got over it, she felt she needed to marry him now in this time when they came together again, because then she would win. So she also said that she tried to be what he wanted her to be, and she claims that she has asked for so little in return of him. However, this is according to J-Lo, there is no making Ben Affleck happy, as she is not a drink. These are her words. Because all he wants to do is drink. And she says this is a big open secret in Hollywood. So for anyone at the point where he was like he needed to go to rehab, anyone who was going to claim otherwise, she's like, everybody knew. He was always drinking on set. He was always drinking everywhere he would go. This is just one of any number of big open secrets in Hollywood. And that she also says this is just one of all of the big open secrets in Hollywood. And that so she felt like she had to go through with marrying him because then she would finally win, and she's very competitive. And then this is also kind of interesting. She said, I don't know why she told me this, but she volunteered that she actually can't stand Madonna. But in a weird way, she also said that she thinks that they would both end up being friends even though they can't stand her. So I asked her, why can't you stand Madonna? Like, is it her personality? Is it like her nature? What is it about her? And she said, no, it's because Madonna is more successful than her. And she cannot stand people that are more successful than her. Even though the reason for all of these people's success is because of the fact that they joined the club. Okay, so for anybody who is wondering if somebody has made it in the industry, whatever industry that is, the movie industry, the music industry, whatever industry, it's all because they have joined the club. And even though she knows that they all made deals for their success, and she did too, she still can't help but feel that their success is due to their actual merits. So this is a recognition on her part that the success that she has achieved in Hollywood is not due to her singing or to her actual acting. She acknowledged also that she is not the best singer. She is not the best actress. She's a good dancer. But that she succeeded and she achieved the level of success that she had achieved solely on the back of the fact that she had joined the club. So she's wounded because of it, because as a competitive person, she really wanted to succeed in the industry because of her natural innate talents. But she's recognizing that she doesn't have these natural innate talents like other people do. And the fact that she has achieved any level of success is only because she joined the club. She also told me that it's all fake. Everything that we see in Hollywood is all fake. All the glitz, all the glamour, it's all a complete lie. And it is a cover for the actual true, these are her words, the true depravity in Hollywood. And anything that I think to be true in the industry is true and then some. Now, she also told me that she is under the protection of P. Diddy. And he's actually quite high up in the club. And what was shown to me in how she came to be under his protection was because many, many years ago, there was a shooting in a club and she had lied to protect him. So whatever it is that she had said and she had sworn under oath or whatever it is, was just to protect P. Diddy. And because of that, she had proven herself to be worthy of earning his protection. And then she had also told me it's like the mafia. And in like the movies that we have seen in the mafia, it's like someone saying, it's like the distinction between this is a friend of mine and this is a friend of ours. So it's the higher up in that internal organization, or that club, if you will, that one would be climbing, it's a distinction between only being under the protection of one person versus being under the protection of like the whole family or the whole organization as a whole. So when she had done this, she was starting to work her way up in the industry and making various deals along the way. But at this point, this is when she was under the full protection, and then she was referred to as this is a friend of ours. Not just this is a friend of mine, this is a friend of ours. And that denotes whose protection they are under. And she also referenced that, again, this is a club, this is a big club, they're all in it, and the club will always protect their own, just like the mafia will. The mafia rewards people that are not snitches. If you get arrested and you go to jail, but you don't say a word, when you get out, you get accolades. You get promotions because you did your part and you didn't say a word. So just like in the mafia, how that works with what she had witnessed, and she said there was more things that she had witnessed as well. But because of what she had witnessed and because she was no snitch, she was then under the full protection. This is a friend of ours. Okay, so I hope that answers any questions that you have had about J-Lo. Now, moving on. And yes, my notes are always in different places because I channel different things at different times. So let me skip a couple of pages. So yes, there's also a question about P. Diddy, if I'm going to be answering about him, because that came up. The answer is yes. That's a little bit later on because I'm doing my notes in the order that I channeled them. Otherwise, we're going to be here all day as I try to like line things up. Okay, the next question, and this is actually from... I forgot when I was asked. This is before I had even done like the last Ask Me Anything. So just to prove that I really do get to everything. It's just a matter of time. Okay, so this is a question that had come in about ayahuasca. And what was shown to me about ayahuasca is that it dissolves people's own personal veil so that they can see themselves more clearly. And it was also shown to me that it's quite sacred and it should be handled with a lot of care and with experienced people that understand it and its powers. Because a person can... I'm not re-recording this because we're 23 minutes in. So you're just going to have to deal with the raw version of what can happen behind the scenes over here. Okay. It was also told to me, this is because I have 2 notebooks on my lap right now. That's actually why, because I've channeled in 2 different notebooks. So I'm keeping everything close by, but you know, paper on paper, butterfingers, holding pens, holding crystals. I guess it's, you know, this is real life over here. Things are gonna like fall off your lap. But it was also told to me that it should be handled by experienced people who understand its true power, because if it is not, a person under the influence of it can have a psychotic break from reality if they are not ready to handle it. Now, this is also coming in as a reminder that the veil serves a purpose. And if one isn't truly ready to see beyond it, it can cause more harm than good to them. So that's why anyone who wants to have an ayahuasca experience, to do it with with people that are very, very experienced with it and understand its true power and are not looking at it just like, oh, this is a drug, I'm going to take a drug. No, no, no. Like, this is a sacred soul experience that one can have, and to really only trust yourself to go on that journey with one that understands its true powers and can almost like assess a person to see if they're actually ready to see beyond their own personal veil. Because if not, the veil is a protective mechanism and the person can have a psychotic break from reality, okay? Now, also at the same time, because it seems like it was along the same veil, even though this wasn't requested, I actually looked into LSD. And what was shown to me about LSD is that it dissolves a person's veil between themselves and the divine. So it's not dissolving the veil between yourself and your higher self or your higher consciousness, but it is completely dissolving the veil that one has between themselves and God, between themselves and divinity and the divine. And it therefore will allow us to more easily connect to it and everything and everyone as well. Because once you're connecting to God, you realize God is everything and in everyone. So if you're connecting to God, you're connecting to everybody else as well. So it's a complete dissolution. It completely dissolves the veil that a person would have between themselves and God. And then in that in turn will also dissolve the veil that they have between themselves, God, and all other people, all other life on earth, everyone and everything. Because yes, the divine is in everyone and everything, and once you connect to the divine, you are automatically connecting to everything and everyone else, okay? So if that was ever a question anybody had about LSD, there you go. I hope that answered the question you had about ayahuasca. Let's move on to what's next. Here's JFK Jr. and Prince Harry. We've done them already. Here's an upcoming video I'm going to do on the royals. I'm getting to them too. Okay. Now this is a wild. I don't even know how he slipped through the cracks, and he wasn't even on my radar. This was a request, I think, to one of my true crime videos that I had done on Charles Manson. This really took me by surprise. So when I looked into Charles Manson, there is nothing there. Literally nothing. So imagine, if you will, walking into a gigantic warehouse, a massive warehouse, like an airplane hangar. The floors are painted white. The walls are painted white. The ceiling is painted white. So when you're in this massive airplane hangar, there is a devoid of everything and any sort of stimuli around you. So when you are in such an enormous place that is all painted one color, you're aware of just how little there actually is. Now imagine, if you will, before you go in, the person had also taken extra time and attention to paint the line between like the wall and the ceiling, and to paint the point between the floor and the wall. So when you're looking around, you can't even see like where does the floor end and the wall begins? Where does the wall end and the ceiling begins? Everything is just all the same. And only when you are in such an environment like that do you become aware of how vast of an expanse it is and how empty of an expanse it actually is. That is Charles Manson. It was like he was never alive, and he had a pulse, but there was no thoughts, no soul, no nothing. This was a little bit creepy. I'm not even gonna lie. Now, I was able to pick up on a few things, such as the fact that he played Russian roulette, but he really, really played Russian roulette. Like, he had a gun, he would load all of the, I think it's called chambers, or all of the rounds. He would load all of it except for one. He would spin it, he would put the fucking gun to his head, and he would pull the trigger. And then he would howl like a fucking lunatic when he didn't blow his brains out. So he was not actually like conscious. He had some level of mental capacity and mental function, but in terms of having like a soul core essence or having a soul, what's it called? Those things that it tells you what direction you're moving in. Having what's not a thermostat? Why am I thinking a thermostat? It's not a thermostat. He had no soul core and no soul direction in which he was moving. And because he didn't have any level of consciousness, he had mental function, mental capacity, but he didn't have soul consciousness. He didn't have a recognition of his own soul. So because of that, he would do things that people would look at and be like, that person's there's a reason people look at him like he was out of his mind. He would urinate it was shown to me, he would urinate in public without any thought of it. He was uncouth to the max, and he missed every single social cue. So he would urinate in public, people would like look at him with disgust, and it was like it wouldn't even register that people were looking at him with disgust because of the way that he behaved. There was no consciousness. Again, that first reference of being in an airport hangar, everything is painted. That is who he was on the inside. There was just a complete, absolute void. So it was like he was not even human. He was a complete anomaly. To me, he's a complete anomaly. Now, he had to be locked up because as an agent of chaos, and I don't know why I wrote that, but that's what came in. He was an agent of chaos. So even though there was nothing inside of him, he served a purpose. His purpose was to be an agent of chaos, apparently. Now, he needed to be locked up because as an agent of chaos, he would leave nothing but a wave. He would leave nothing but a wave of devastation and destruction behind him. Now, he also had a knack for picking up these lost souls. So for anyone who's not familiar with who Charles Manson is, I'm not going to do complete justice, but basically he was like the mastermind, they say, which is funny because mastermind, like he was a master of nothing and no one, not even himself, but he served a purpose. So one could say he was living out his purpose, even if his purpose was to be this agent of chaos and to be a complete void within himself. There was murders in Beverly Hills where he had gotten these lost souls that followed him around like little sheep to kill a businessman and his wife, and then to kill Sharon Tate, who was an actress married to Roman Polanski at the time. She was also pregnant, and I believe there were 2 of her friends in the house as well. So he had a knack for picking up these lost souls and then influencing them because they were lost. And they were lost because they felt that they themselves didn't fit in. And he absolutely did not fit in. Again, see what I had said above, like no consciousness, no missing every conceivable like social cue imaginable and just missing it. So he absolutely did not fit in. So altogether, they were a highly dysfunctional band of misfits, and he was their leader. There is no one better to be a band leader of misfits than he. He was at the helm, and while the others that he would pick up in his so-called family knew that they didn't fit in, he just wasn't even aware that he didn't fit in. But somehow his level of non-awareness within himself was refreshing to these lost kids. Because look at it this way, they came from maybe a more traditional family where they felt that they didn't fit in. So they felt the delineation between themselves and other people. They had the soul consciousness. They didn't miss the social cues that were going on around them. They just felt like they didn't fit in with the family that they were born to. So his zero level of awareness and zero consciousness, they read it to be someone who was so completely comfortable and at ease within himself that they aspired to be like that. But they were lacking the understanding that the lights were on and nobody was home inside of him. So they were aspiring to be, almost one could say, like a ghost. But his lack of social awareness and his lack of, therefore, sense of not fitting in, they took to be very, very refreshing. Like, wow, here is somebody that is so completely different and so comfortable within himself that he has no problem just being who he is. That's why they wanted to be like him. They just didn't understand that the reason he was so completely comfortable being himself was because he had no level of social connectivity to other people. And these kids were lost, and they felt they had no voice in a world that was too loud and drowning their voice out. They were weak. They were lost. He was their shepherd, and they his sheep. And because he was he was an agent of chaos, he led them to do horrific things in the name of chaos. Was he any less guilty because of the fact that he himself did not do it? When he implanted the thoughts for them to do it. I will leave that for you to decide. Now, the next person that I actually looked into was Hitler. And this kind of surprised me. Now, here's why it surprised me. Because sometimes when I look into a person, I am coming at it because I want to get a certain information from the soul, from the essence of the soul. So with Charles Manson, what I was even trying to ascertain within him was something that I had read, which I thought was really, really interesting and really compelling, which was that his mom worked for the United States military. And the United States military does do experiments on their own soldiers, as well as personnel. Not just the military, the government. So what I actually wanted to see with Charles Manson was if he had been some sort of a government experiment. Had the ideas to commit these things been implanted inside of him? So when I had approached his energy, that was what I was trying to connect to. What I got instead was a complete void of a soul inside of it. That let me know that the actions that he had done was one of two things. It was either where any soul essence that he had been completely eradicated by mind control, and therefore he was just like this empty vessel, or it was that literally he had come here with the purpose of just being an agent of chaos, destruction, and devastation. Either way, it didn't make a difference, because understand, as I've talked about in my other videos, the soul, before they come in, they're going to have to agree to either the major soul lessons of what they're going to achieve in their lifetime, or they're going to have to agree to come in and to be somebody that is so full of hurt that they will hurt other people, a la, for example, like Ted Bundy. So what I came in to try to see was not able to actually see. But that's again why I'm bringing up this point about the soul component. So does it matter if he was a messed up experiment done by the United States government, or if he was sent here to do this? I don't really know if it does. Because again, I'm reminding you, either way, whichever one it was, it's all divine. He was designed, or he agreed, to come in and do these things because that was a lesson for all of humanity to learn at that time. Now, similarly, when I was looking into Hitler, there's some other, so-called conspiracy theories that I had read regarding his lineage and who his family actually is, and in addition to who his birth family actually was, who he is the father and grandfather of. And if you know, you know. I'm not going to say it herein. Again, I like to keep things somewhat vague, so if somebody is called to do this research on their own, they can find it. This is an opportunity. If I say something and it piques your interest, you'll be like, I wonder what she's talking about. I want to look into it. That's very much how I came to all of these things. I would hear something and I would be like, this blew my mind. I need to do the research. I need to look into it. Here are some rabbit holes I can fall down. And then later on, it was not here are some rabbit holes I could fall down. It's here. Let me sit down in meditation and connect to my guides, to the Akashic records, and let me see what's out there. So again, if this is something that piques your curiosity and you want to know who I might be speaking about, you're welcome to do the research. But I am not going to, I can only take the horse to the water. I can't make it drink. Now, so again, with Hitler, when I was looking into him, similarly, I was looking for specific information regarding his birth lineage and who are his alleged offspring, children and grandchildren. I got something else completely. And it's interesting, and that's why I'm going to talk about it. Okay, so for Hitler, what was shown to me was he was a fallen angel. Now, his energy was not easy to pick up at all. And it was, I assumed it was because he's been gone so long. But then I was thinking about it and I was like, well, that doesn't make sense because I could pick up energy of people who have been gone like hundreds of years. He hasn't been gone that long. Like, why can't I pick up on his energy? So then what I wanted to do was to try to go around that and pick up on the Akashic records and to pick up on his soul's history. Now, for anyone who is not familiar with the Akashic records is, or are, the Akashic records, think about it's almost like a documentation of every act that a person has done, everything that a person has done, but not just in one incarnation. So let's say somebody wanted to pick up on the Akashic records of me, Faye. So you're not just going to pick up on the Akashic records of this lifetime where I am a person by the name of Faye. You would actually be able to access all of my other previous incarnations as well. So it's, if you will, a way of looking at the Akashic records is it is a soul's documentation through all of their incarnations. But it's for every single person on earth. So think about how vast and absolutely enormous the Akashic records must be, because there is a record for every single person and every single incarnation that they have had. And it's all of the things that we have done, and it's all of the lessons that we have learned. It's a complete soul's resource and record that carries through from lifetime to lifetime. So I was thinking, okay, Hitler's energy is not really coming in so clearly. Let me see if I can access his Akashic records, and let me see if I can actually see like what was going on in other, previous lifetimes that may have contributed to him becoming, a Hitler in this lifetime. So if you're also curious why I'm able to see other people's past lifetimes, like I've shared in multiple of my videos, but also in like Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, it's through the access of the Akashic records, because it's a record of the soul and all of their previous incarnations. So I was like, cool, I'm just going to go to the Akashic records. And what happened when I went to the Akashic Records to see his previous lifetimes was it was shared to me that he had no record and he had no past here on earth because he wasn't from here and he hadn't been here before. And that it was shown to me he was a fallen angel who came here specifically for the purpose of being Hitler and doing this, being the figurehead, if you will, of the Holocaust and killing all of those millions of people. Because as you know, things don't exist in a vacuum. So he is largely attributed with his name. Hitler is synonymous with the Holocaust, but it takes a great number of people to carry those things out. So he's really very much the figurehead of the Holocaust, but he was not the sole person who was responsible for it. Now, I haven't looked into fallen angels all that much. I don't know that much about them, but my understanding of what a fallen angel is it is a angel that has in one way or another lost, one could say, favor with God, because I guess they have free will too. So they have done something to displease God, and then their karmic retribution, if you will, might be to come to a very, very dense energy, a place like Earth, and to do certain things. So he was a fallen angel. He had, in one way or another, had done something. He had lost favor. He needed to repay his karmic debt because of what he had done, and that was in coming to Earth and being the name synonymous with the Holocaust. And it was also shown to me that that's why he was so angry. So if you actually go back and look at footage of Hitler, he was practically berserk. Like when he would give speeches, he was so fiery. He was like erupting. He was angry. He was really he was like an eruption of negative energy. And he very much was, because he was a fallen angel, his soul's essence was so completely dissatisfied with his demoted status and what he came here to have to do, that is literally the eruption you can see in all of the footage of him. Now, it was shown to me that he was also angry, he hated people, and he always felt separate from us and from this place. Because again, he was not from here. He had not had previous incarnations. Being a human being, there was no Akashic record of him. His soul's essence was so hard to pick up on because he didn't spend any time here. So he was angry. He didn't like it here. He didn't want to be here. He just knew he had to come and do this thing so he could go and earn back the favor and his place with God. Now, he did only feel a sense of kinship with Germany because that was the place that his soul had incarnated in this lifetime as a person named Hitler. But as a whole, he wasn't connected to Earth or the people at all. He just had a little bit of kinship for Germany. And there was so much anger in him because he hated this place and he hated being here. He just knew he had to do what he had to do so he could move on. That is what I got for Hitler. Very, very interesting. Not at all what I expected. But I also like sharing this because I think it gives you an idea of, because I know you guys are always asking, like, you're curious, like, how does the information come into me? Sometimes I can go looking for something, right? Like I'm on a mission. Like I gotta go to Target, I got errands to run, I gotta get my paper towels. Sometimes I go to Target and I get only my paper towels, but sometimes while I'm at Target, I am looking at their housewares and I'm like, oh, that's a cute planter, I need to get that. And sometimes I'll leave Target with the planter and the paper towels, Sometimes I'll forget the paper towels this actually happened to me yesterday. I went to Target. I went for paper towels. Did I come home with paper towels? No. So very much the way things can happen in the real world, one can say, is the way the information can come into me. I can go on a mission looking for something. Sometimes I'll leave with it and only it. Sometimes I'll leave with it and something else. Sometimes I don't even get what I thought I was going to get. So don't ever discount the information that comes into you, because it's all relevant and it's all connected, even if it's not what you had gone in to get, so to say, okay? Now, this one came as a request from Deanna, and I know that you have been really curious about this topic, and I'm going to share this. This is a missing young woman by the name of Heather Elvis. Now, what happened with Heather, and this didn't happen that long ago. I want to say it was maybe like 10 years ago or so. And this young woman had gone missing. And what I believed that she was actually a waitress, and she had started an affair with a married man. And the married man's name was Sidney Moorer. Now, what was shown to me was it was unfortunate that Heather became involved with Sidney, because Sidney was in Sidney himself is highly dysfunctional, and he is in a highly dysfunctional relationship with his wife, whose name is Tammy. So there's a lot of energetic dysfunction there. Now, what was also shown to me about Sidney and Tammy's relationship is that they have a open relationship. So an open relationship is where, let's say, people are married, they're in a so-called committed union, but they are free to have, it's not even called an affair because their partner knows about it. So they're free to have sexual encounters and sexual engagements with other people, even though they're in a so-called committed relationship. So that's what an open marriage is. And Sidney and Tammy have an open relationship. So they are both free to have sexual encounters with whomever they want. Sometimes they tell their partner the name of the person that they're having the encounter with. Sometimes they don't. But their partner knows that they are seeing other people. Now, it was shown to me that Sidney and Tammy, they were the kind of people who didn't keep who they were seeing sexually a mystery from one another. So they would come home and they would talk about it. So Sidney would come home and he would tell Tammy, yeah, I met this girl, Heather. She's a waitress. I'm going to start seeing her. And then once he was seeing her, he would come home and he would tell Tammy what he was doing with her. And they got off on, they enjoyed. That's what it means to get off on something, right? They actually enjoyed hearing about what their partner was doing sexually with another person. And then they would have relations with their partner, and this is Sidney and Tammy. I'm not talking about all people in an open relationship, but Sidney and Tammy specifically would have sexual relations with each other while talking about what they would do with their other sexual partners. So this is I'm not shaming anybody. If this is your jam, you do you, boo. Like, no judgment. Just the energy of these two and how they're coming together and how they were doing this, it feels uncomfortable. Now, okay, so this is the way their energy came in. Frankly, why I'm saying there was high levels of energetic dysfunction, I don't like to use labelless words, but the way their energy came in was gross. It just feels gross, okay? Now, what they would do also is they would have relations while talking about what they had done with their other sexual partners. They would see their partners forever, however long they would end up seeing them. Then it would end. Then they would come back and they would be in a more so-called committed relationship to one another, where they weren't necessarily seeing other people on the side. And then they would rinse and repeat. So this was Tammy and Sydney's MO in their relationship. It's their modus operandi. They have always had an open relationship. They've always discussed it. They've always enjoyed discussing it. They will sometimes have other lovers. They will sometimes not have other lovers. They'll come back. They'll be in a relationship only with the two of them. Then they'll get bored of the relationship that they're in. They'll go back out. They'll find other lovers. They'll be with their other lovers. Then they'll get bored. They'll break up with their lovers. They'll come back. Rinse and repeat. This is the modus operandi of their relationship. This is just what they do. So maybe like your family's tradition is every Thursday night you go out for pizza. Maybe every Tuesday you make tacos, Taco Tuesday, Pizza Thursday. Maybe that's your family tradition. This is their family tradition, okay? Now, Tammy knew that Sydney was seeing Heather out of boredom, because that was their MO. They would come together, they would get bored of each other, they would go out, they would find other people. So he was in the I'm bored of just being in a relationship with my wife stage, so therefore he was having a relationship with Heather, completely out of boredom. And now she was also on a hiatus from her latest lover, and she was bored. So Tammy wanted to torment Heather. Completely out of boredom. And even though she knew what was going on, she wanted to pretend not to know and to act like she was a jilted wife. Meanwhile, she knew that they were having an affair, and she genuinely did not care that they were having an affair, because she was having them too. It's not even an affair. She knew they were having a sexual dalliance with one another. She was having her own. She didn't care. But out of pure boredom from her life, she wanted to act like she was a jilted lover. Now, there was, I had actually read when I was looking up, like the dates and the names of these, the characters who she was seeing, and his wife's name and all of that. I saw that there was some speculation if Heather had actually been pregnant. Now, I was shown that she was not pregnant. And at a certain point, she was starting to, this whole thing with Sydney was just starting to feel really, really gross to her. Like her internal guidance system was kicking in, and it was like, this is not a good sitch, you got to get out of it. And she very much wanted to move on. And she had actually gone out on a date the night that she had disappeared, because she very much wanted to move on. And if she would have been pregnant with Sydney's child, that would have tied her to him. She didn't want to have any ties to him, because frankly, she was realizing this guy was more trouble than he was worth. And the situation with his wife was just like, she didn't even understand the full extent of it. It was just weird. And the way that the wife would come in, I believe like the wife called her work to try to get her fired. She was like, this is just, it's not worth it anymore. This guy is a creep, and his wife is even creepier. So she wanted to completely have nothing to do with the two of them thereafter. It was just too much trouble. So Sydney took a long break from speaking with Heather as he would engage in the dysfunction with his wife. And then again, because as I was saying, it was a rinse and repeat cycle with these two. So they were engaging with one another again, then they got bored of one another again, and again, out of this boredom came the plan that Tammy had devised, okay? So now, yes, I'm sorry, I just wrote their like rinse and repeat cycle so many different times, so I'm just trying to navigate through it. Now, because she was on a break from her other lover and she was bored, she just wanted to take the piss out of Heather. So she devised this idea of what she wanted to do. And she directed, because yes, she wore the pants in that family, so to say, she directed Sydney to go buy a pregnancy test. And that she wanted to she told Sydney to go to a payphone and to call Heather and to tell Heather, I'm leaving my wife. You know, I've spent some time away from you. I really, really miss you. I want to make this work with you. So I'm leaving my wife and I just want to be with you. Can you come meet me tonight? I want to talk to you about it. So this is what happened on the night that she disappeared. He called her up. He spoke to her and he told her this, as directed to by Tammy. I'm leaving my wife. I've been away from you. I just want to be with you. Please come meet me tonight. I want to talk to you about it. So she went to go meet him. And for a while, they actually were driving around, just the two of them, and they were talking. You know, first they were just playing catch up, like, what have you been up to? What have you been up to? You know, what's going on in your life? Okay, tell me more, like, so you want to leave your wife, like, what's been going on there? He would put on, like, this whole pretend shit show of what a nightmare Tammy was to be with, and how she was basically, like, snubbing it in his face all the men that she had been with and all the lovers that she had had, and he had enough, and he just wanted to have a nice, normal life. So this is what he was basically telling Heather. And he also pretended that his wife did not know that he was reaching out to her. So yes, first they drove around, and then at some point this poor girl, and then they stopped to pick up Tammy. And Heather was sitting in the front seat, sandwiched between Sydney, who was driving on one side, and Tammy, who was on the other side. And they were taunting her. So first she was confused. She's like, wait, what? What's she doing here? I thought you were leaving her. Why is she here? And then they started to taunt her. And this is at the point where Tammy took out the pregnancy test, and she was like shoving it in Heather's face. And she was saying, you thought that he was going to leave me for you? He's not leaving me. Look, in fact, we're trying to have another kid. We're actively trying to get pregnant. We're going to have another kid. And she was being horrific to Heather about this. This is why these people have high levels of energetic dysfunction. And it is manifested in the way that they were behaving. They pretty much just wanted to fuck with Heather out of, again, complete boredom on their part. And then Tammy was telling Heather, Sydney would come home from being with you and he would fuck me and he would tell me what he had done with you. Like they were being complete monsters to her. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Now, this was all, first of all, very, very understandably so shocking to Heather. And this was reconfirming to her what she had felt about Sydney and what a bad guy he was, and that she wanted to have nothing to do with him. So she asked to be let out of the car, and Sydney let her out of the car. Now again, because Tammy wore the pants in the family, this was not acceptable to her. So what she had done was she was like goading Sydney and telling Sydney, you can't just let her walk away. No, I'm not done. She's going to walk away. She's going to tell people about this is going to make us look bad. You got to turn the car around. I need to go talk to her. Turn the car around and pull up next to her. I need to talk to her. So what Sydney did was he did a U-turn. He turned the car around and he pulled up next to Heather as she was walking away. But he pulled up with the passenger side by Heather. Not the driver's side, not his side, the side that Tammy was sitting in. And he pulled up next to her. And I'm sorry, guys, I know, Deanna, I know that this really touched you quite deeply. Tammy grabbed Heather. She grabbed her hair. And she was holding onto her hair and screaming at Sydney to drive. So Sydney started to drive while Tammy was holding on to Heather's hair. And she got dragged on the road because of it. And then because he was driving and her feet couldn't keep up with it, I'm not saying anything else. So she was killed as a result of Tammy's rage and what Tammy had done. So what they had done was they buried her body. And I'm sorry, I'm not convinced that her body is going to be found. I think it might be found at some point in the future, but it's going to be quite by accident. It's going to be either through like natural erosion of the earth or something like that, or unbeknownst to where Sydney and Tammy had buried her, there's maybe like erosion there. It might be found. It's not going to be for a while. It might not be found at all. However, I'm going to tell you this much. That, so Heather's energy came in really, really strong to me, and she wanted to pass this message along to you guys. So at first she was really, really confused what happened. Because she thought she was just walking away, and then the next thing she knew, she was out of her body. Here's the other thing, she was not in pain. Because at the point that this happened, at the point that, like, it was more shocking than anything, where she felt like she was grabbed from behind, she was pulled out of her body. So she really didn't suffer, besides for like the initial shock of like feeling her hair like yanked on and then being pulled forward. But as Sydney started to drive, she was yanked out of her body. So she was disoriented. She was confused by it. But she also says that for all of her friends that are working so hard to keep her memory alive, she sees you. She sees what you are doing, and she is so eternally grateful for what you are doing, because she, being out of her body and being in such a disempowered state energetically, cannot keep her own memory alive. And she is so grateful. She wants you to know. She sees you. She sees what you are doing. She sees how you are working to keep her memory alive, and she is so grateful for all of you. So guys, keep doing the good work that you are doing. This is, one could say, God's work. So you are seen, you are acknowledged for what you are doing, and she is so eternally grateful for what you are doing. She's more, one could say, wanting to keep her memory alive, not even for her own sake, but for the sake of her family, and particularly her father. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I'm sorry, this was hard information to receive. And what was done to her was completely unfair. So I'm sorry. I know Deanna said that some of Heather's friends want to see what happened to her, and I'm sorry. I genuinely am, because she had beautiful, lovely, almost one could say like musical energy. Her energy came in as being quite melodic. She had beautiful energy. She still does. And oh, here's also the other thing. She is with God. She is being healed. She's coming to understand what were the energetic chinks in her armor that led her to becoming engaged in a sexual relationship with Sydney, and she is being healed by it. And she is spiritually and on a soul level and energetically in a much, much better place, and she did not suffer. So I hope that brings some level of comfort for you if you wanted to know what had happened to Heather. Okay, so we're going to move on. This next one this is going to be a really long video today, guys. This next one came by request. This is about shadow work. Now, this is interesting because shadow work, there's actually a lot here. And a lot of it, again, see parts passing about. Sometimes you're going to Target to get your paper towels. Sometimes you leave with paper towels. Sometimes you don't. I left with my paper towels when I looked into shadow work, and I also left with some more goodies as well. So there's interesting information here. So what shadow work is, for anyone who is not familiar with it. So first of all, it's a really, really buzzy phrase that's kind of been out there right now in the world's sphere. You know, it's like in the self-help world and community, people are doing their shadow work. So what is shadow work? It's where one comes to accept the so-called unlovable parts of themselves, or the parts of oneself that, if it saw the light of day, it would be considered socially unacceptable, and it's therefore the parts of ourselves that we would shun and not integrate fully into ourselves because of it. So what that will tend to do is, when there are parts of ourselves that we deem to be unlovable or unlikable or unworthy, that will cause a fragment within us. Because, hey, there's parts of myself that are not good, not pure, not socially acceptable, not divine, not of the light. We will suppress those parts of ourselves, and we will starve it of oxygen, and it will slowly die off. So this is therefore causing a fracture in our personality expression in this particular incarnation. That's one way of looking at it. So yes, that part of ourself will become oxygen deprived, fragmented, disempowered, and we will end up leaving parts of ourselves behind. Now, this is also what leads to a separation of people, which I know sounds weird. How does creating a delineation between myself and other parts of myself, how does that on a bigger picture lead to a division of all different kinds of people? Because here's the thing, you've already, not you, anyone who has done this, not you, I mean, maybe you've done this too, we've all done it. There's parts of myself that I also had to suppress for. Guys, I saw dead people when I was 4 years old. There's a famous story between me and my mom. That was weird. I remember sitting on the front steps in front of my house seeing dead people. Of course, they weren't like mauled. They don't look like they were mauled by tigers or anything, but they were translucent. I could see through them. And I remember telling my mom, why are those people that are not people walking across our front yard right now? Did my mom, love you, Mom, but did my mom have any idea how to answer that? No, of course not. She thought that I was just, being a kid having a fantastical imagination. This happens enough time where you're saying it to enough people and enough people are like, you're crazy, there's no one there. Guess what happens? We end up suppressing those parts of ourselves. So I suppressed my gifts and ability for like 40 years until I was like, nah. No more living in a disempowered state. I am calling all parts of myself back. But because we do this to ourselves, we are already in a position, we are already in the habit of disconnecting and disassociating. So if something is deemed to be unlovable about ourselves, we will suppress that part of ourselves. If another person is deemed to be like what they did after September 11th is they blamed it on the Muslims, what happens to people and the perception of Muslims? It's to create a division and a separation between people and other people, and it all starts with ourself. Okay? So this leads to a separation of people because some of the people will, first of all, right? Like, I'm gonna stick with the Muslim example, and then I'm gonna take it in another direction. So for example, Muslims, innocent, completely came to America wanting to just, give land of opportunity, wanting to just have the ability to practice their religion, freely, give their children a better life than the country that they came from. And now they are painted black by society because of what happened in September 11th. So what will happen is those people will end up withdrawing and only staying in the confines of the Muslim community because they know they are safe with those people. So what will happen, let's say, is if a person feels like there's too many parts of themselves that are too ugly and too unworthy. Well, they will actually end up over-identifying with it, and then they will end up withdrawing from so-called like normal society and normal life, and then they will end up going into the fringe group of whatever group they belong to. So I'm just going to give this as an example. This is not by no means the most comprehensive example, but the example that came to me is people that not just get tattoos, but will tattoo not just the entirety of their body, they'll even start to tattoo their face. They'll shave their head, they'll tattoo their head. So it's where they're almost completely covered in tattoos. Then there's people that will take it even further and they want to alter their appearance. So they'll get completely carried away with plastic surgery. Well, I'm gonna just be this plastic surgery person now. I might as well go full steam ahead. And those are the people that will end up, with the duck lips and with the plasticky looking faces. There's people who want to alter their appearance, so they'll shave their teeth down to look like fangs. They'll get dye inserted into their eyes so their eyes are black. They'll get implants of devil horns into their head. So it's where they will start to over-identify with the so-called dark parts of themselves because they don't want to just relegate it into the corner to die. They'll say, I guess I'm just a freak, so I'm going to commit to being a freak, and I'm going to be the biggest fucking freak that I can be. Okay. This is all coming from shadow work. It's completely, this is what I'm saying. Mind-blowing. I went for paper towels, and I left with the whole fucking Target in a handbag. So they will completely, this is also came through, people that are into BDSM, abuse in sexual relationships, so like sexual play, and the people who are going to live on the fringes of society because they are over-identifying with their so-called shadow side. Now, what was also shown to me is that this concept will become more and more prominent and more clear in the future as, first of all, more and more people are given the opportunity to wake up and face their shadow side. So this is a very, very buzzy word now in the self-help community. At some point in the future, this is just going to be part of like the natural lexicon, where you're just gonna people are gonna be talking about their shadow side, not just like their therapist or like their close friends and their close confidants, but it's like, tell me about your shadow side and tell me what is the work that you had done to integrate it and to make yourself whole. Now, it was also shown to me, this came with an expression, and the expression is, it is easier to deceive people than to have them accept that they have been deceived. This is also going to play a very, very large role in future shadow work that people are going to do. Because as more and more people are waking up, they are going to, in order to raise their vibration and to continue to ascend, they're going to need to call back all the parts of themselves. So they're going to have to call back their so-called shadow parts of themselves, the parts of themselves that are, unworthy, unlovable, dark, that if people saw it in the light of day, they would mock it. Like, look at what's even going on now with what's coming out about Armie Hammer, which is that one of the women that claimed he had raped him, it's coming out now that, this was not non-consensual. She had consented to it, but that's a wounding in her where she feels like she needs to deny that this is something that she's into. And there's a lot of kink shaming that comes with it. So this is where people are going to be giving the opportunity to call back all the parts of the slut-shamed parts of themselves, the kink-shamed parts of themselves, all the parts of themselves that were shamed by society or were neglected by themselves. They will have the opportunity to call it back. And in the experience of calling back the parts of themselves, if they were somebody that was also deceived, they will call back the parts of themselves that were deceived as well. And anybody that has been deceived, whether it's about C19 or these or the medical system as a whole, or anything that is playing out on the world stage that is creating division and separation with people. Again, let me use that example of the Muslims. Let's say there's people that really believe the narrative of 9/11 and they've hated Muslims ever since. They will need to call back the parts of themselves that were deceived by the narrative in thinking that Muslims really took down the World Trade Towers. So they will need to call those parts, the deceived parts of themselves, back and accept that they were deceived by this narrative. Now, this is the purpose of shadow work. And again, just like I've shared, we're waking up in shifts, so that way there's someone that has made it to the mountaintop. Like, imagine somebody who had no mountain climbing experience decides that they want to go climb Mount Everest. They need the Sherpa, they need the gear, they need the ropes, they need the guidance. So everybody that has woken up and has started to do the shadow work up until this point, we are the Sherpas of the people that will be waking up in the future. And shadow work is the tool. Shadow work are the special boots those mountain climbers need. It's the harnesses that they need to help them to get to the top of the mountain. Because when we fracture parts of ourselves, we are vibrationally lowering our energy. When we do the shadow work and we call all of the parts back to ourselves, we are raising our vibration and we are raising our energy. And all of these people are going to be given an opportunity when they wake up to call parts of themselves back so that they can energetically ascend and raise their energy, because they are no longer living a fractured state. They are no longer living a part where they are not all parts whole. So the shadow work is the connection, the tool, if you will, to people's ascension. Right, so we're waking up in shifts so we can help people along the way. Now, there was also a question that came with this idea of shadow work, which is, someone had asked, does everybody just not know about their, the dark sides of themselves, their shadow parts? No, not everybody does, as unbelievable as that is to hear. A lot of people are not aware of the fact that they have a shadow side. These are the people that would rather monkey vine from one distraction to another, one beer to another, one binge watching one TV show to another, one relationship to another, one hit of a bong to another, one shot in a bar to another, one whatever to another. They're just going to monkey vine rather than slow down and feel themselves and feel their emotions and feel the uncomfortability in having a shadow side. So the people that you see constantly running away from their own life or doing any sort of thing to distract themselves, it's because they don't want to slow down. They don't want to feel the discomfort of having a shadow side or feel the discomfort of having endured trauma. They would rather numb themselves out. So there are a great number of people that in fact are not aware that they have a shadow side, or what it may even possibly be. So for people like this, ignorance truly is bliss, because their ignorance is keeping them, first of all, in a lower, denser energy. But that lower, denser energy, as I always say with the veil serves a purpose for people who are not ready to yet ascend. So their unawareness, is that even a word? Their ignorance of their shadow side is their own personal veil. But in the future, they will be given the opportunity to become aware of what's on the other, first of all, the veil, what's on the other side of the veil, to call parts of themselves back so that they can ascend. Yes, I think I have completely wrapped up what shadow work is. So I hope that has answered your question. If not, comment down below and let's see if there's anything further that will come out of this. Okay, so the next one that came up is a question about the Turkey and Syria earthquake. This is a lot shorter, but this is what actually had come through. So what was shown to me was what happened. There was apparently I don't watch the news, guys. I hope you know that by now. There was a large earthquake in, I guess it's maybe on the border of or between the two countries, Turkey and Syria. So what was shown to me about it is that this is an energetic purge in the physical environment. And it's also sometimes because people need to literally be shaken awake. And that is what is happening here. So it's that, first of all, the people living there were either living out of sync with their environment in terms of either their farming or agricultural practices. And the land needed to purge all of that to put an end to it. Or it was that the people needed to literally be shaken awake to be shown how incongruent and how out of sync they were living with their external environment. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, the next one is about the sudden influx of the mystery objects that we are seeing in the sky. Now, I'm going to just first say that this was not channeled in connection to this. This is just channeled like the world as a whole. That anything that we see playing out in the world stage, and yes, I'm going to call it a stage, anything that we see playing out in the world stage at this time serves a purpose. It is either a form of disclosure on a grand scale, or it is a distraction, or both. So it's disclosure or distraction and or both, all of the above. Now what's going on with all of these things in the sky serves all of the purposes, okay? All the above. So this is revealing what many of us have already been suspicious about, another way of saying that, already known, which is that we are not alone, that extraterrestrials do come here, and that they are non-human UFOs. And the fact that the government is now engaging in it, one could say, is to disclose to us that this has been happening all along. That the government has known about it, they've been engaging with it all along. Now, this is also serving as a distraction for everything else that is going on. And for more on this, I know that sounds a little nebulous, see my video that I'm going to do on Thursday, because that's actually going to dive into this a little bit more. Okay, so just put like a pin here. You can come back to this if you feel like, after watching Thursday's video, if you feel unsatisfied with what is disclosed on Thursday. Okay, but I'm actually gonna, even though I have some other things, I'm gonna skip that for one moment, because it also does connect to another question that was asked. And I'm not sure if I can say the actual phrase. So how can I speak in code around this? Let's say there's a lot of traffic on the freeway or the highway or the road or wherever, right? I live in LA, so we call them freeways. The rest of the country calls them, highways. Now, so let's say there's a lot of traffic on your particular roadway, but it's a school bus that's in the traffic. And who's on the school bus? Little kids. And what are the kids being taken to? They're not actually being taken to school. They're being taken to something else, another place. They're being taken to something that usually consenting adults will do one another, of a sexual nature. Okay, so I hope you're kind of getting where I'm going with all of this. So the question was asked, will this particular traffic with the children on the school bus going to this activity that is not usually one that children would engage in, will this ever be exposed? Now I've looked into this, and consistently the answer has actually not changed, which is not in its entirety. Now, why is that? So first of all, a lot is already coming out to light at this time. So look at the fact that now Steven Tyler, he's now being accused of being in a relationship with a woman that was much younger than him when he was an adult and she was not of a legal age. There's information coming out now where people are accusing Madonna and her organization of also creating this traffic with little children. Then it's come out that Oprah was, best friend or like really, really close friends, first of all with Harvey Weinstein, but also with somebody by the name of John of God. John of God was convicted of, and he's serving a prison sentence right now. He was convicted of absolutely horrific things, not just the trafficking of these little children in the school bus, but actual human imprisonment, where he would abduct women and hold them hostage, and then he would force them to have his children, sell those babies on the black market, and then when the women were past their childbearing years, kill them. She was best friends with him. Now, even if it seems like, but nothing's happening, why is it now known that she was best friends with him and we're just expected to believe that she didn't know about it? So understand that these things being released on the world stage is a form of disclosure. But if all of these things were disclosed in their entirety without filtering it to any extent, it has been said that 99% of the population would end up in like a mental institution. They wouldn't be able to accept it. So these things cannot just be released. People have free will. That is the human experience. And as I've said so many times before, free will reigns supreme. And free will also means free will to discover and to know about these things or to make the choice not to know. So if these things were just released out in the open, that is actually superseding people's free will. They cannot supersede people's free will. So it's going to slowly be revealed in the way that it has been revealed, where now there's more of these celebrities and their associations to people like this is coming out. And now there's allegations about their own involvement in it is slowly starting to come out, right? That is a way of creating a breadcrumb trail for people that are interested in it to pick up on those breadcrumbs and to start following it and to see where it leads. And another way of saying that is to fall down the rabbit holes and do their own research, because that does not supersede people's free will, the free will to know these things or not. So that's why it's never going to be revealed in its entirety, because that will supersede people's free will. Now, I also want to say that this is also why it may seem frustratingly so, and it may seem as if why the media is against us. Why is the media lying to us? Why is the media not revealing everything, right? Because that again goes in hand with that is superseding people's free will. So if it seems like the media is against us, it's actually a protective layer. Again, it's a veil. It's a veil between people who don't want to know the truth of these things in their entirety. So the media is actually protecting those who do not want to know. Everyone still has free will, and that includes the free will to know or not to know. The breadcrumbs will be here. If someone's interested and they want to know, they can follow those breadcrumbs and see where they lead. But will it ever be revealed outright in its entirety? No. So I hope that answers your question about the trafficking of the little people on the school bus. Okay, another question that came up, which I thought is really, really fascinating, is the Antichrist real? Now, what was shown to me is that there may be a so-called figurehead of an Antichrist, but that figurehead will only come out on the world stage and come to pass and come to be known worldwide if we all have collectively given into the lowest energies and parts of ourself, which are namely fear and the denial of our divine. So look at it this way. The so-called Antichrist is actually the lowest version of ourselves. We are living the lowest versions of ourselves when we are living in complete fear and complete denial of our divinity and our connection to God. So only if and when every person would go into that complete state of disempowerment and complete fear and complete denial and complete veil between themselves and God, only then will the so-called figurehead of the Antichrist come out. Because look at it this way, everything is an energetic match, everything is energetic alignment. So only if the world was plunged into this complete dark state would then the emergence of a so-called Antichrist come to be. Because he would be a reflection of the state of the world as a whole. So when it is said that this is a spiritual war and that it is our souls that are being fought over, it's because that is the truth. And again, see my video coming up on Thursday. I will go into a lot more depth and detail on this and illuminate what all of this is and what all of this means. And Agenda 2030 is the ultimate goal. So if we were to give into the fear porn and continue to step away from God, Agenda 2030 would be the ultimate goal of where humanity would end up. And therefore, only at that time, at the completion of Agenda 2030, would the so-called Antichrist come to the fore. However, because too many people are waking up, this figurehead of the Antichrist will not come. And you know, you guys know, if you've watched me long enough, I do not ever do prediction videos. I do not ever share what the ultimate outcome will be. But it's just like with the trafficking of those little humans on the school bus. Every time I've looked into it, the answer has consistently not changed. Every time I have looked into the ultimate outcome, the outcome has also not changed. Agenda 2030 does not come to pass. It does not come to be. Too many people are waking up and too many people are ascending. And because of that, you can't put them back asleep. It's like, imagine a jack-in-the-box, and the jack-in-the-box breaks and you can't stuff it back in. That's what happens when we energetically evolve and when our soul wakes up to our true purpose and our true meaning here. You can't put us back to sleep. You can't stuff the jack-in-the-box back into the box. So energetically, Earth is never going to be that dark and dense where an Antichrist can come to be. And similarly, because of that, Agenda 2030 cannot come to be, because that's a very, very dark, energetic, dark expression of what somebody wanted to do with the world. But we are waking up en masse. So energetically, that is not a viable option any longer. Too many people are awake. Now, similarly, what was also shown to me, in case anyone was going to ask, there may also be a figurehead of Jesus and a second coming of Christ. But, I'm sorry, I know this is controversial, the figurehead of Jesus is also more to reflect that all of humanity has ascended. So could there possibly be a figurehead? Yes, but the figurehead is more the representation that energetically every person has woken up and that we have all collectively and individually embraced our divine nature and our Christ-like qualities. So I hope that answers any question that you may have. For anybody that is, like I was raised of the Jewish faith, if hearing about Jesus and not wanting to accept the Christ-like quality, then you could replace this idea of who Jesus is with any person that is very, very virtuous in the Bible, if you want to replace him with Moses. So it's just to say that, again, this person, it's not the who, it's what they represent. So it's the representation of a Jesus, for example. It's a representation of a Moses, for example. Don't get attached to the name. Look at the qualities of the person. And it's to say that when we all individually come to own those qualities within ourselves, and then that is a worldwide phenomenon where everybody wakes up and they then therefore owns it, then and only then will a so-called Messiah or a second of Christ coming to be. But that is just a reflection of all of our energy rising in concert with one another. Okay, so I hope that that answers your question. Please comment down below if it did not. Okay, here's another very, very interesting one. So I was asked about Julian Assange, and even though I wasn't asked about Edward Snowden, it seemed like if I was looking into Julian Assange, I should look into Edward as well. This is very interesting. And Julian Assange is actually going to connect to the video I'm going to do on Thursday. So keep an eye on that. But so Julian and Edward have two completely different energetic expressions. And here's why. It was shown to me that Julian was actually a plant. What does that mean? He was placed in the position that he was in so that he could do something called declass. Declass is just short for declassifying classified information. So he knew going into it that this was what he was going to do. Okay? Not like on a soul level, not like God said to him, I'm putting you forth and you will do declass. But he, on the strictly three-dimensional level, knew that he was going to either be given this information or acquire this information so that he could declassify it. So his energy came in as very measured and very balanced, albeit a little bit heavy because of his situation. Now he knew what he signed up for and that he was going to be doing time in prison because of it. So he had spent time building up, prior to his incarceration, building up his internal strength and reserve to weather the time that he would serve being incarcerated. Now, it's not to say that he is not upset, right? Because he went into it knowing exactly what was going to happen because of this. He was placed there because of it. So he very much knew. So he was, first of all, strictly again in the three-dimensional, he was in agreement with being placed in the position to do this declass, knowing that he was going to be locked up, okay? So it's not to say that there's no heaviness around his energy. The only heaviness that's around his energy is because he is currently being locked up. It's not because he didn't know that this was going to happen, and he took the time to build up his internal reserves because he knew that this would happen. Now, Edward Snowden was not placed. So whereas Julian Assange's energy was more balanced and measured because he had the time to come to the understanding of what was going to happen and to get himself ready for it, this was not the case with Edward Snowden. Edward Snowden was not a plant. He was not placed. He was just a citizen who had a particular job, and in the course of doing his job, he came to see the massive government overreach and was gobsmacked at it. It was also showed to me that he tried to go through the proper channels to bring this information forth, and he became increasingly more and more frustrated because of it, and therefore, because it was just not going anywhere. And therefore, he was becoming disillusioned with the entire power structure in the United States government and those that were in power, because he was seeing how little they were actually doing for the people. So our representations are supposed to represent our will. They are no longer representing our will, they are representing their best interest. And this came to his realization through his attempt to bring this forth through all of the appropriate channels. Now, energetically, therefore, energetically and emotionally, I could pick up on him much more. He was so much more palpable because his experience while going through all of this was real and it was raw. And he didn't know what was going to happen with him. He just knew that he had to speak up. So his adrenaline was through the roof for absolute months on end. Now, he was sure that he was going, so what actually ended up happening with him, and for anyone who's not familiar, he was becoming very, very frustrated with the fact that all the proper channels that he had gone through were not actually doing anything. And what did he actually discover? It was something called the Patriot Act that happened after 9/11, which was that there was massive government overreach where we United States citizens were basically told in order for the government to be able to subvert a future terrorist attack, they were now going to listen in on all of our phone calls, all of our text messages. They were going to monitor all of our communication. But that was only supposed to be if there was like certain keywords or certain phrases that were said that was like a tip-off of a terrorist attack. But what ended up happening is that there was none of that. They were just listening to everything that we were saying. You had a fight with your boyfriend, somebody was listening to that and somebody knew about that. And if they didn't, then there was a potential they would come across that tape, and they would. You were texting kinky messages to your husband, somebody was reading that. And if they haven't, they would come across that and they would read it in the future. You were having a conversation, a sketchy conversation. You see where I'm going with this? So there was no level of privacy that United States citizens had the expectation of from that point forward. And when he came to understand this, he was trying to go through all the appropriate channels to bring it forth. It was getting shut down. So he had the information. He actually smuggled it out because he was working as I think a government contractor for a company. And he basically smuggled the information out, and he approached journalists and he said, I'll give this to you. You have to do your due diligence. Like, don't take my word for it. Do your due diligence and see if this lines up. And then if it does, you're welcome to release it. And if not, no harm, no foul. Now because of this, because he knew he had taken information that he was not meant to take, and that he could actually do a lot of time in prison for, his adrenaline was through the roof. He didn't know what was going to happen to him, other than he was sure he was going to go to jail for a very, very long time. Now, he actually ended up in Russia, which I think is kind of ironic because look at everything that's been said about, Russian disinformation. And if one wanted to paint the picture, therefore, that he was a Russian plant, what better way to do that but then to put him on a no-fly list when I think it was in, I want to say maybe either China, I think China or Japan. And then he was put on a no-fly list. He couldn't fly anywhere. The only country that would take him was Russia. So if, for example, one wanted to make the case that he was a Russian spy and this is Russian disinformation, what better way to do that than to make sure he can't fly anywhere? He was actually, I think I read, he was trying to get to like South America. He just couldn't get there. The only place he could go was Russia, so he flew to Russia. Okay, so his energy also came in that, first of all, it's been a very, very difficult transition for him for a number of reasons. First of all, societally, it's a very, very different culture. It's a very different climate. And it's very different people. So just on like a societal, socio-societal way, it's been a difficult adjustment for him. But it actually took him a good 2 years to stop looking over his shoulder. He was convinced that he was being followed. He was convinced that he knew that all of his calls were actually being monitored. And he couldn't escape the feeling that because of that, he was always being followed. And he thought he was going to be taken out. Yes, even in Russia. So the first 2 years, he didn't stop looking over his shoulder, literally and figuratively. And the first 2 years were pure hell as he was convinced that he was going to be taken out. But slowly his nervous system has regulated, And he has began to accept Russia as his home, and he now feels safe there. And even though I don't do predictions, I do see there's a potential Medal of Honor for him in the future for his bravery and what he has actually done. It's a potential, okay? So I hope that answers any questions you have about Julian Assange and Edward Snowden. Let me tell you, this is a long fucking video. Let me tell you what's left so you can prepare accordingly. I have Heather O'Rourke, which again was a request. Is Earth a prison planet? Britney Spears update. Biggie Smalls and P. Diddy. The Georgia Guidestones and Bill Gates. And I hope I can get to all of these. I hope my video doesn't get cut off. But let's see if we can get to everything. So Heather O'Rourke, what was shown to me about her is she is fantastically open to the etheric realm. She was psychic to the max, connected to the max, and therefore it was actually no coincidence that she was cast in the movie Poltergeist, as she had had her own very, very real life paranormal experiences, but they were so happening on an ongoing and regular basis that they were not paranormal for her, they were normal. She was fantastically open, fantastically psychic, and fantastically gifted. Now, therefore, because she was so fantastically psychic, darker beings were always in a frenzy around her. So look at it this way. A shark, so there's a surfer cuts their arm, there's blood in the water, and now the sharks, it's a fucking feeding frenzy, and they're circling around that surfer because they want the blood. They got the scent of the blood. So darker entities and darker beings could pick up the fantastic way in which she was open, and it was a fucking energetic feeding frenzy around her. Now, as we've discussed in other videos, you can go back and watch my video on the music industry if you want to learn more about this. The way in which you can actually connect to somebody's kundalini, which is we have basically chakra systems in our body, and there's kundalini. The kundalini is in our belly like a coiled up snake. And then as we can ascend and as we begin to open up, the snake will uncoil. It's not a real snake, it's energetically. But the energetic snake will begin to uncoil, and it will begin to work its way up through our system to our crown chakra, where it can connect to the divine. And the way in which you can hook into somebody's chakra system and the way in which you can connect to their kundalini and pull it down is through sodomy. So the darker beings and entities were in a feeding frenzy around her and in connecting to her through the act of sodomy, because they were getting a taste of how fantastically open and psychic she was and how open she was to the divine through the act of sodomy. Because sodomy is just not sodomy. It's not just the physical act. It is where you are connecting into somebody's system and you're pulling their energy down. So you can connect to their energy and you can siphon it off of them. So now also look at it this way. Anyone that is willing to engage in sodomy with a minor, that is rape. It's just clear cut. She was a child. How old was she? 4? So anyone that is willing to engage in the act of sodomy with a child, first of all, understand that person has completely stepped away from God. They no longer are, they can no longer access their godliness through the act of non-consensual sodomy with a child. So because she was so fantastically psychic and open, and because it was an energetic feeding frenzy when these dark beings were around her, what do you think they did? They were physically in a frenzy while they were committing the act of sodomy on her. And there was multiple people doing this at once. I'm not naming names. You're welcome to go back and to look and to think if you can. It's whoever you think it is. Were in a feeding frenzy when they were with her, because they once they were committing the sodomy, were connecting to her kundalini, they were pulling it out, they were siphoning it. Look at it this way. Here's the best way I can say it. Imagine there's a vampire. This individual has been a vampire for hundreds of years. They haven't seen the sun in hundreds of years. And then they get a surfer, and they are now feeding on the surfer. And through their extraction of the surfer's blood, they are getting what it feels like to feel the sun on their body while they surf. And it's a professional surfer who has spent thousands of hours surfing. So it's just an abundance of the sunlight that this vampire hasn't had access to in hundreds of years. What's going to happen? They're not going to regulate themselves. They are going to drink that person dry, because it is the only connection they have had to the sun for hundreds of years. So anyone that is engaging in the act of sodomy with a minor has stepped away from God. So they are completely devoid and disconnected from divinity. Now, they have access to that person. They're in a complete fucking frenzy when they're with them. So when they are committing the act of sodomy, they are in a energetic frenzy, which is also a physical frenzy. Complications, severe complications, are going to arise when something like this happens. And that is what happened here. So they were not being discerning in what they were doing, because they finally had a connection to the divine. This was the most potent high that they had ever had experienced. So what ended up happening is, because of that, they did suck her dry energetically, and because they were not being discerning, they were extremely negligent in their actions of the commitment of the sodomy on her. So she developed health complications because of it, and she died. But I think what they said arose, they said it was because she had like a genetic defect. So just understand the way that these things work in the industry, as I think I answered in my last AMA, the way that little kids are perceived to on a set is they're the hors d'oeuvres. So the entire Hollywood industry is corrupt because of it. They're all in the same club, and go back to parts passing on J-Lo, they all protect their own. So if there's a doctor that is examining her, they're not going to out what all of those people have done. They got themselves a cushy job being in the position that they're in because of it. And it's not just a doctor that's on set. It could be any doctor that's in a prominent position. They protect their own. So whatever we have been told about what happened to her is not true. She had this condition because of the sodomy, not because of like a genetic defect or anything like that, okay? So I hope that answers your question about Heather O Rourke. Now, the next question is Earth a prison planet? And I think this is really, really interesting. I know that this has been said, and I know that people are referring to this place as the beast system. Another way of putting it, and I think that I kind of actually like this interpretation. So in Judaism, it's actually called Gullus. Gullus is where we are separated from God. Think of Gullus as like the ultimate veil, okay? We're in Gullus from God, we're veiled from God. You know, it's so-called said that Israel is our home. So we are in Gullus from our home. We've been extradited. Look at Gullus as like an extradition. It's an extra. We are just not one with God, okay? That is what the experience here on earth is. We are all veiled. We're veiled from God. We're veiled from our true self. We're veiled from our connections to others. We are just living in one massive veil. That's the experience of what it's like to be here on earth. Now, because it is a heavy, dense planet that is so fully immersed in materialism and 3D concepts, it makes us feel energetically like we are stuck in quicksand. So we are sludging through quicksand, and therefore it slows us down, and we all have repeating experiences that we will go through until we get it. So maybe you're gonna get it in one particular incarnation, right? Maybe Maybe, for example, you're dating the same person over and over again. They just have different bodies. They just have different names, but it's the same person. Ultimately, it's the same relationship on repeat. So you might have, five such experiences with this kind of person until you get it. And then you say, okay, no more, till here, but no further. So you might get your lesson in one particular incarnation, and then that is not a lesson that you're going to necessarily have to come back and repeat until you get it. But it doesn't always take only one incarnation. It takes multiples. In addition to that, so those are lessons that our soul has agreed to come and experience. We could also, we have the energetic reverberations of our previous incarnations, the things that we need to come back and we need to energetically course correct. So because of that, we are in a karmic loop. We're in a karmic cycle of where we are coming back over and over again. But does that make this a prison planet? No. It is not a prison planet. It is just a very, very heavy, dense planet where we are so veiled from our true purpose here, from who we truly are, from God, from one another. And we come here to have experiences, we come here to get lessons, and that will take sometimes multiple lifetimes. And that is again because of the heavy, dense energy here on Earth and because we are so veiled. So we don't even necessarily know from lifetime to lifetime, what the hell did I come back here that I meant to learn? What the hell did I come back here that I have to course correct? We don't even know because we're veiled. It's complete madness. But complete madness does not a prison planet make. Now, everything is just slower here because first of all, we have bodies. There's other places in the universe where we don't have bodies. We're just pure source energy. So because we have bodies, everything is slower here. We have bodies, we have to eat, we have to sleep, we have to feed our bodies, we have to rest our bodies, we have to bathe our bodies. Then because it's three-dimensional, we have to adorn our bodies, we like to dress our bodies up. Then because it's three-dimensional, we have urges with our bodies. So, we have to go to the bathroom, we want to have sexual encounters with people, we want to eat a good meal, like have a good steak every once in a while or all the time. Then in addition to that, we have all of the societal pressures and expectations that are placed on us by our families. In addition to that, we have to communicate. We can't communicate telepathically. So we have to talk, we have to write, we have to speak, we have to engage. So everything is slower here. And that is including our progress. But slow progress does not a prison planet make. So no, this is not a prison planet. Yes, we can all get out of here. Yes, we're all getting out of here at some point. Or it's just going to be a totally different place in a couple, give it like a good decade. We may not even want to get out of here. Okay? Just putting that out there. So I hope that answers your question about, is Earth a prison planet? If not, comment down below and I will make sure to answer your question. Britney Spears update. I think this is really, really interesting. I know that you guys have been asking for a Britney update for a while. So here's what's going on with Britney. It was asked, is her husband her new handler? The answer is yes. Now, why is he her new handler? This is wild. She needed a new handler because it was known that she was going to get her newfound freedom, and it was known that her, it was known that her conservatorship was going to end. So they knew that she needed a new handler to keep her in line, okay? However, it is not going well. Not just for her and her new husband. It's just in general, her life is not going well. So first of all, she was under conservatorship for 13 years. So even though she is free, she is having a really, really hard time adjusting to her freedom. And the way that it was actually shown to me was, this is what they do with elephants. I don't know if they do this anymore, but what they used to do with elephants for like the circus when they were training them is they would first put a very, very heavy shackle on an elephant's leg. Because those elephants are big and strong, they could literally just snap it and walk away. So they would put a really, really big shackle on the ankle. So that way when the elephant would test it, it would see it can't get away. So then in time, after the elephant had tested the shackle enough times and it realized it can't get away, then they wouldn't need to have this big heavy shackle on it. They would replace the shackle for a lighter shackle. And then what would happen is the elephant would test it, but as soon as it would feel even the smallest bit of resistance, it wouldn't even try to pull away because it had the association when it feels the resistance, I can't get away, it doesn't matter. So it would stop testing it. Then they would put an even lighter shackle on it. And they would do that up until the point where they didn't need to put a shackle on the elephant at all, because the elephant had been trained to stay in one place. So through the conservatorship that Britney was under, and being energetically held down for 13 years, she's actually responding to it, much that her newfound freedom, that is, much the same way that an elephant would no longer test the shackles because it's used to being confined. So she's been used to being confined, and energetically she's having a really hard go adjusting to her newfound freedom. Now, in addition to that, so she may be free, but she's not energetically free. Now, in addition to that, she's had a really, really rough go, because there's, first of all, the lasting trauma of what she endured in the industry. Go back and see what I had said about Heather O'Rourke. It didn't just happen to Heather O'Rourke. The industry is pay to play. What are you paying? So what is done to any celebrity is done, all the little celebrities, is done to all the celebrities. That was done to her as well, okay? So it's because of what she's endured in the industry. Also, as I have shared in other videos, there's a lot of clones. There's a whole fleet, actually, of Britney clones. There's a whole fleet of them. And people want these clones for any number of reasons. First of all, they want to know what it's like to have sexual relations with Britney in her heyday, when she was young Britney, dancing on the stage at the VMA with the snakes. They want to have relations with that Britney. Or they might want to take like a dance class with Britney. I don't know, I can't get into the mind of these elites and what they want to do. But there is a whole fleet of Britney clones. And she knows about it. And she knows what those clones are enduring because it's her DNA. So she is very damaged because of all of that. Now, another thing is that her father basically pimped her and her sister out, and it was shown to me that he ruled the family with an iron fist. And it was asked, like, what influence her mom had in any of this, and it was actually shown to me that her mom early on tried to be like a positive influence and really tried to be there for the girls, but that the father ruled the family with an iron fist, and he was like a bull in a china shop. So he did a number on the mom as well. So the mom is also damaged because of the marriage that she had. She has energetically been in a very disempowered state for many, many years. Therefore, she was limited in the amount that she could be there for Britney. And I know it was also asked, like, oh, K-Fed's writing a book, and like, oh, what about Britney's book? And like, oh, now K-Fed's talking to the media and all of this. So in regards to it, it was shown to me that everything we see around her with K-Fed, the books, it's all noise. And that it is a direct reflection of the chaos that is going on inside of her, is therefore having a physical manifestation externally around her. So again, if you didn't see the part, if you skipped it, if you didn't see the part on the Antichrist, you would have the figurehead of the Antichrist come forth only when we were in our lowest energetic state. Would the physical manifestation of an Antichrist come forth? This is the same thing. She is in such a chaotic internal state because of everything that she has endured. That is being manifested on the physical, on the external world because of it. So it's all just chaos and noise. And on some level, it will always be around her. And the way it was shown to me is actually fascinating. It's just like a smoker who quits smoking. But the smoker who quit smoking never got new furniture, never got new clothes. So even though he is still not smoking, and he smoked in his house, right? So even though he's still not smoking, the furniture still smells like smoke. The carpet still smells like smoke. Even like his clothing, no matter how many times he launders it, if it's not new, it still smells like smoke. That's the same thing here. There is so much energetic corruption and chaos inside of her that everything that goes on around her is just an external manifestation. It's the smoker who no longer smokes, right? So she may no longer be in a chaotic she may no longer be experiencing a chaotic internal state, but the chaotic internal state is there because of the way in which all of the years of her life leading up to it have been. So it will forever be an external chaotic state around her, just like that smoker and the apartment and the carpet and the furniture and the clothes smelling like smoke. And also, it was shown to me, I thought this was kind of funny. So 2 things about K-Fed, in case anyone is curious. First of all, K-Fed loves his kids. He really, really fucking loves his kids. He really genuinely is a good dad, okay? That's first and foremost. But what was also shown to me about K-Fed is that he fried his brain smoking too much weed. So you don't really have to worry about what he's going to say about Britney, because the neural pathways in his mind go nowhere. So he's never really going to be able to do too much damage to Britney's reputation. He's just done way too much weed. He's just smoked too much weed. Okay, so I hope that answers your question about Britney. If not, comment down below. All right, next one. Holy shit, this video is long. We're at 2 hours and 10 minutes already. Biggie Smalls and P. Diddy. So what was shown to me is that Biggie was a sacrifice made by P. Diddy. Now, P. Diddy was already in the club. He was working his way up. He wanted to actually ascend to a higher level. He wanted to be higher up in the club with more wealth and more success. He wanted that more than anything. And it didn't matter what the price was or what he had to do. He was willing to do it to get there. So, yes, this was his way of climbing the ranks. And what you can do when you're climbing the ranks is you can choose to make a sacrifice that is not your family, a la Jennifer Hudson, a la Kanye. You don't just have to sacrifice a family member. You can pledge, I'm going to go after somebody else. And as long as you know when you make that pledge that you will assume all of the consequences of the potential fallout should it not go your way. So if he would have gone after Biggie and it didn't go that way, he could never then try to bring anybody else down with him. He would have to, they say you do the crime, you do the time. If it would not have worked out the way he wanted to, he couldn't try to take anyone down with him. He would have to do the time. He would have to keep it to himself, and he would have to go, behind bars. So this is something that you can do in the industry. And it's kind of like with mob bosses, where let's say your district is like Brooklyn. You're the Brooklyn mob boss, but you're looking over at Staten Island and you're like, I like what that guy over in Staten Island is doing. I want to get in on that. But you can't get in on that because Staten Island already has its own mob boss. So that is a case where you would see mob bosses going after each other, where they would take out another mob boss because now they have not only their own territory, their own turf, they have other turf and other territory, and that's going to bring in more money to them. So this was very, very much the same way, where if you want to climb the rank higher, who are you sacrificing? And it doesn't always have to be a family member. So he pledged who he was going after, as long as he would assume all the risk that should transpire should things not go to plan. But if you look at how Diddy is living now, he's living like a king. So from his perspective, it all worked out. So I hope that answered your question about P. Diddy and Biggie Smalls. All right, we got 2 more topics. Let's see if we can get to it in under the 2.5 hours. All right. question about the Georgia Guidestones. So for anyone who is not familiar with what the Georgia Guidestones were, they were monuments written in 8 different languages. They were erected, I believe, in Georgia. That's why they're called the Georgia Guidestones. And they, so they were written in 8 different languages, and it was a so-called blueprint or designed to be a roadmap for survivors in a post-apocalyptic world. So already look at that. They're predicting a post-apocalyptic world. Interesting and notable, one would say. Okay, so post-apocalyptic world, and these guidestones were meant to survive and be a roadmap for how people were to live if there should be a apocalypse of some kind. And this is what they say, which I think is so interesting. So first of all, what the Georgia Guidestones were, they were erected to satisfy the Kabbal's laws of karmic retribution, and it laid out their plan. So karmic retribution, according to the Kabbal and their laws, they can do anything they want as long as they tell you what they're doing. So here, they're telling you what they're doing. It doesn't matter how you choose to receive it. You could be like, this is a bunch of nonsense, right? People who watch like a Marvel movie and they're like, it's all pretend. No, it's not fucking pretend. We're choosing to receive it as pretend, but they're outing all of these things, that these things are all available to us. So this was erected to satisfy the Kabbal's laws of karmic retribution and essentially laid out their plans. There's gonna be an apocalypse. There's going to be a limited number of survivors. This was meant to act as the roadmap for how to live in a post-apocalyptic world. What I also find to be notable, it was written, there are 10 commandments on it, just like there are the original 10 commandments that God supposedly gave to Moses. So there's 10 commandments on it, just like that, but this was written by man for men, right? So this was not God giving to man. This was written by man for man. So this was a way of trying to, first of all, again, cut God out of the picture. So one would say if there was an apocalypse, wouldn't the original 10 commandments be the commandments that people should live by? No. They want to circumvent that because they want to cut God out of it. Because they are disconnected from God, so they want to disprove God. Because they don't have a connection to God, you cannot have a connection to God. So this was written by man for men. And these are what the 10 rules supposedly were supposed to be in a post-apocalyptic world. Number 1, maintain humanity under 500 million. They're telling you exactly what the population should be. Under 500 million. 2, guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. I'm sorry, this is giving me Hitler vibes. Like, reproduction wisely according to whom? All right, number 3, unite humanity, because that's the easiest fucking thing to do in the world. When all Kabbalah has done is create division, now they're calling for you being united. 4, rule passion, faith, tradition with tempered reason. I'm not, as Forrest Gump said, I'm not the smartest man. I'm not the smartest woman, but God damn it, I don't even understand what that means. 5, protect people with fair laws. Again, fair according to whom? This is like word salad. It's word salad. What is considered fair? Who's doing the protection, and according to whom is it considered fair? Okay, I digress. Let all nations rule internally. So you mean like no World Economic Forum telling us how we should all live? Interesting. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. You mean like all of the people that are currently in government? Okay, that's something I think I could get behind. 8, balance personal rights with social duties. Okay. 9, prize truth. 10, be not a cancer on earth. But again, what defines being a Cancer on Earth? Is that eating a fucking steak? Does that mean I'm a Cancer on Earth? Yes, you will eat bugs and you will like it. Does that mean decorating my home the way I like it? Yes, you will own nothing and you will be happy. So do you see how this is just word salad? But this was written in 8 languages. This is supposed to survive, and this is supposed to be a guide map. But it doesn't tell us how we're supposed to implement these things. Just that this is the way that people should live, according to the Cabal. And then you're going to have people rise to the top, and they're going to be the ones that tell you they understand what all of this means, and they're going to tell you how to implement it, and they're going to tell you how you're allowed to live. Because be not a Cancer on this earth. So put down your fork and stop eating that steak, you selfish, cancerous person. Okay. Now, what was so interesting, though, again, is these were created by man. And I love this. They were created by man, for men, but who destroyed it? Men. So it was men of the light telling men of the dark, this is what we think of your laws, you can fucking shove it. That's what happened to the Georgia Guidestones. They were blown up by men of the light who wanted to tell the beings of the dark, this is what we think of your laws. Okay, I hope that answers your question about the Georgia Guidestone. By the way, I'm not even picking that up because that's the old notebook. I don't need the notes in there. But that should also just tell you the direction that we are on energetically and karmically. If they were blown up, it's because we're not going in that direction anymore. We don't need those laws. Where we're going, those laws won't be needed, okay? Last topic in this video, this is Bill Gates, by request. It's gonna be a little bit long, sorry. So first of all, what was shown to me was that Bill was always a little off and he was different. He was very smart, but he was socially awkward. And he was the ultimate tech geek, the way we would associate one to be. But because he was socially different, he was not cool. So he wanted to make a lot of money because he knew by virtue of the fact that once he had a lot of money, it wouldn't matter if he was cool or not, people would want to be around him, right? Again, this is a very heavy, dense, three-dimensional place where we put value on stuff. So he wanted to have a lot of money so he could have a lot of stuff. And because this is a low, dense energy where we look up to people with a lot of money and a lot of stuff, that's why he wanted it. Because he also knew once he had a lot of money and a lot of stuff, it didn't matter if he was cool or not. He would be cool through the virtue of his money. Now, what was also shown to me is that he didn't actually expect to become this wealthy. So the level of success that he achieved and the level of financial success that he actually acquired caused him to have some sort of a break with reality. Not a psychotic break. He didn't lose his mind, right? He didn't lose his mind, but he had a break with reality because this is the way it was shown to me his thought process was. Whereas he started to believe that he really was better than other people because of his wealth. And he started to associate his wealth with being smart, right? I was only able to achieve this level of wealth and success in my life because I'm really smart. So therefore, it stands to reason that other people that have this level of success and wealth in their life, it's because they're really, really smart. And then what's the flip side of that coin? Anybody that is not really, really wealthy, it's because they're really not smart. What does that mean? You're not wealthy because you're stupid. And in his mind, that came to be, you're poor because you're stupid, and that means you're less than me. I'm wealthy because I'm smart. You're not wealthy because you're stupid. And if you're stupid, you are less than, okay? This is what was going on in his mind. This is the break with reality that he actually had. So therefore, that extended naturally to other wealthy people, and he started to believe all wealthy people were superior as well. Now, he was not an empathic person before, but whatever empathic qualities or traits he may have had were now completely eradicated with this break in reality that he had experienced. He lost his humanity. Now, when he looked at people, he saw a clear line, a delineation between wealthy and poor, and the perceived poor because of their lack of intelligence. So how this started to show up was that he first simply wanted to test things on people in the name of healthcare. But because he was perceiving them to be less than him and less than his friends, he didn't feel he needed to seek their consent or notify them as to the potential side effects of what these things were going to do to people. Could it possibly make them sterile? Yes. Was he notifying them? No. Could it cause long-term health complications? Yes. Did he notify them? No. So he was looking at people like they were human lab rats for him to test genetic modifications out on. So I'm not sure I could say the word, these thingies, those efforts were nothing of the kind of what they claimed to be. Because, and this is not channeled, this is just my own personal opinion. And I have to say that, right? Like, I feel like if it's channeled, you should know that it's channeled and it comes from a non-judgmental place, because Source is not judgy, you know, like our guides and guardian angels, they don't fucking judge us. They just love us. So this is not coming from them. They wouldn't be like saying this. This is like this is human face saying this. One thing that I never understood about him, and maybe this is relatable for you too, I never understood why he was doing all of this in India, in Africa. Like, dude, if you really want to improve people's lives, give them fucking running water. That will eradicate so many health concerns people have because they don't have running water. You really want to make people's lives better? Build housing for them so they don't have to live in those shanties. That's how you can improve people's lives. But doing this is not improving people's lives. This is, again, just to show you his thought process. It was never about improving people's lives. It was about, these are my human test rats. They are less than me. I can experiment on them. Okay? And again, that was, human judgy fae saying that. That was not like divine at all. So, and here, he also actually experienced a shift where he started to feel truly powerful with the accumulation of trust that was placed in his hands and in his name. Dude doesn't have a medical degree. But in some way, like, the name Bill Gates became synonymous with like somebody who has all the answers. They know everything there is to know about infectious diseases. I'm sorry, not to brag. I have the same medical degree as Bill Gates, which is none. Why is my name not synonymous with like healthcare? So he really started to feel truly powerful at that point because his name became synonymous with authority on matters of infectious diseases, right? How many times was he on the TV yapping about C-19 and about how devastating this is going to be for all humanity? Projecting your desires much? So he started to feel godlike because he had successfully rebranded himself fully and completely, and yet it was without a doctor's degree. So he's no longer a tech guy. He made his money in tech. He's not doing anything tech related right now. Like he is just Bill Gates, all-knowing, infectious disease expert. And he loved that people were consulting with him regarding disease and all health matters. So now it wasn't, I'm just the cool kid because I've got all this money. Now it's, I'm godlike because people are consulting in me. So this really stroked his ego. Now he also relished C-19 times because of the way the have-nots, right? That's for us regular folk. That's the 99 percenters. Because of the way that we were treated with all of the lockdowns and all of the rights that were taken away from us, and that really was in accordance with the way that he sees the so-called have-nots. Again, he had a break with reality. We're just not wealthy because we are just not intelligent. So anything that happens to us, we deserve. And he loved the idea of people being, it's gross. He really, really relished and loved the idea of people being wiped out in droves. Now, he fully, see parts passing on the Georgia Guidestones, he really fully actually believed in this concept of the earth is overpopulated and it should have a max of 500 million people. 7 billion, that's just too much. We need to eradicate 98% of humanity. This is my world. There's too many have-nots. So he loved the idea of people being wiped out in droves, and he is in fact disappointed by the fact that more people did not cross over because of it. Now, what was also shown to me, he's actually, I think right now, I believe he is the biggest private landowner of farmland in the United States right now. And what was shown to me about that is it's not the land that he wants. It's what he can do with the land. Could he poison the crops? Could he poison the water? Could he poison all of the agriculture? It's not the land that he wants. It's not the accumulation of the land. It's what he can do with it. And so yes, he's really on board with Agenda 2030, and he believes that the world is overpopulated. Hence, that's why he wants to buy all of this land so he can help contribute in his mind with the human lab rats, looking at us as less thans. He can contribute to the decline of the population and do his part. Because again, he looks at himself as if he is godlike. And he would love nothing more than for 98% for the population to be dead, and all that would be left is him and his elite friends. But until then, he will work on taking away what little happiness we have, like steak. Be not a cancer on this earth, you peasant. You cannot eat steak. That makes you a cancer. So that is the completion of my channeled information. But I'm not just going to leave you there, because that's like a really horrible place to end, right? Like thinking like Bill Gates is just going to kill us all. See what I had said. If you skipped him, go back to I even forgot who it was. What was his name? I'm not getting the notebook, it's on the floor. But the guy who was the DJ on the Ellen Show, right? What did he say? There's a lot of people on the other side that hasn't come to the public attention yet. There's a lot of people on the other side. They've already been dealt with, right? Ellen is already really going to trial. We just don't see it. So just connect the dots in what I'm saying. Could this have been ultimately Bill Gates's plan? Yes, sure. Could he have even started to implement it? Yes, sure. He definitely bought the land. Is he going to see through it? No. So don't worry, you're safe with your steak. We're still all ascending. We're all going where we're meant to go, and everything is going to be just fine. As always, I hope that you guys have enjoyed this supersized version of Ask Me Anything. Take what resonates, leave the rest behind, and stay in the high vibration. Bye, guys.